a guaranteed mechanical way to understand all phenomena that are the sum total of the life of the whole. And everything about this knowledge is recognizing that what human design and all of its other forms provide us is a mechanical insight into the very nature of life itself. So I went through all of these years of trying to bring human design to a point at which, as it is today, that it can easily be brought to others through type, through profile, through all of the things that have been developed in the design language and in design techniques. And yet for me, that personal process of being the teacher of human design is frankly over. It's over. Oh, there are wonderful people in my life who are superb teachers of human design. As a matter of fact, they're a hell of a lot better than me. Really, they're really good. My job now has changed. My greatest interest now is in being able to bring a deep understanding to the underlying mechanics beyond the personal. Frankly, I'm not interested in the personal. I gave up doing personal readings years ago because I just couldn't take it anymore. I really don't care about somebody's particular life. I don't mean to sound harsh in that. It's not like I don't care, but I don't care. You know, it's not my thing anymore to deal with that. I've been through that process for a long time. Sat with thousands of people and been through that movie. I'm much more interested in the whole, because the whole is incredible. And I'm much more interested in being able to see what I've always wanted to see. You see, I came into the world to be a teacher of awakening. I've given you the tools. If you don't wake up, what to do. But I don't want to deal with the not-self anymore. I don't want to be consciously involved with being concerned with the fact that there's this vast slice of the population that is never going to wake up. You know, what to do. I'm not interested. I'm not interested. As a teacher myself, I've retired from most of my teaching anyway. What I'm interested in is bringing you to the world of the true non-personal, to take you into the real mechanics of the nature of being. And in understanding the mechanics of the nature of being, perhaps, as a sidebar to that, you will learn enormous things about yourself. Most of you who have worked with me over the years know that this is the first time that I've offered a truly extended educational program that's going to take place over the following 2 years. My goal is to be able to create a new level of human design professional, a global index professional, somebody who is interested in what lies beyond the personal. Remember, there is, as a priority, the personal comes first, truly. You know, it's why I spent all those years trying to get people to understand that if they just follow their strategy, Jesus, it's so simple. If you just follow your strategy, you will see it works and you will be a better human being for yourself. Period, that's all. And if you don't wake up, that's okay too. You don't have to wake up to have a better life through human design. Not everybody is designed to wake up. Don't follow all the bullshit that's out there. Don't believe for a damn moment that just because you're on the right path, you get to the right end. Oh, that's not the way it works, unfortunately. It isn't. The beauty, however, in this knowledge, because it's mechanical, is that even being on the right path is going to better your life. If you're an emotional being, and you know how to wait at least 24 hours before you cut off somebody's whatever, you will see that life is better for you. If you're a manifester and you think about the consequences of what's going to happen, if you don't tell people what you're going to do, you will see that life is going to be better for you. And if you're a generator, and generators are life, and if you stop putting your dumb feet in your mouth and just wait for life to come to you, we would have a delightful planet. And it doesn't matter whether all of those generators wake up or not. You put them all on the right path and the whole vibration of the planet changes. But you see, we're coming to a great change. Great change. You know, it's right around the corner. It's a quarter of a century away. It's close. And there is a window of opportunity that is closing. In 2027, when we come to the point in which we have a change in our global cycle, we will lose the opportunity of inner truth. I'm your inner truth teacher. You know, I have my design sun in 61.1. This is my job, the inner truth, the occult inner truth. And it is only now that I have my chance. Only now. Because this is the theme of our time. And the theme of our time is to be able to take in all the information. You know, it's my old joke about the snake in the garden. You know, I'm a lot like the snake in the garden. But there's a difference. You know, when the snake comes into the originating garden, it says, here's the apple. Here's this bite of knowledge. And, oh boy, are you going to step into a lot of shit when you bite that apple. But okay, go ahead, bite it. You bite that apple and you go down that long, long road of trying to get to the root. Long road. We're at the end of this road. I bring you no fruit. What I bring you are roots. The roots, the very, very makeup of knowledge. The genetics to a level that is truly heart-wrong. In April 2004, if you're coming to research, I will teach a course which is based on what's called the primary health system, a way of understanding at the level of tone, which is far below the level that anyone deals with at any level in human design. That at the level of tone, not only can you find the way in which all human beings develop their immune system, but how to protect that immune system, how to provide treatments for that immune system. There is so much knowledge below the line nobody knows about. This program is the beginning of this process. To begin to take you through the whole mechanical movement so that you can see the larger life and at the same time put your own process into perspective. One of the reasons that I found it difficult to do readings was that, you see, when I look at somebody's design, and you've all heard me say this many times, I see the mythology that's possible. The mythology that's possible. Each and every one of you are a fractal of mythological force. Each and every one of you. It is our nature. And that the vast truth of what it is to be human is that we are differentiated. When you're looking at somebody's human design, you're not seeing likeness. You're seeing what makes us different from the other. And in understanding differentiation is to recognize that each and every one of us carry a mythological differentiation that in the simple language of design we call the awake state. And that awake state is nothing more ironic than just being yourself. See, I'm a mythological creature. I am. But I'm really a very simple man. I am. And I was a terrible fool before I knew any of this. I was. And the mythology that I live out now is not a mythology that I create. It isn't. It is simply what my life is, because I'm correct. And out of the correctness of my life, there isn't anything in the mythological fractal that is me that I get to miss out on. And I have to do nothing. There's this wonderful Druid saying, do without doing and everything gets done. And I heard that within hours of landing on this island in 1983. And I thought, what the hell does that mean? You know? What are you talking about? I mean, I'm an ego manifester who's an Aries. You know? A rat. You're going to tell me do without doing and everything gets done? I want to tell you, do without doing, everything gets done. It does. It does. And you see, when I deal with somebody at an individual level, rarely do I catch a glimpse of their mythology. What I get are their characteristics. I get their not-self and the way the not-self twists their mind. I don't get them. I don't get anything differentiated and special. What I get is these various splatterings of archetypal blobs of humans. And it honestly isn't interesting. And you see, when I get over here, where we're going to go today, I get away from the fact that you may never get it together. And I get to see what you were, what you might have been, what you could have been. I mean, please understand something. When I get to the very last day of this program, I'm going to show people something that nobody ever has seen. I'm going to show you exactly what family of incarnation of beings you belong to. I'm going to show you exactly how you can calculate, how you can see what the incarnation was before and what the one coming after is going to be. And you can go back and track as far as your track will let you. Nobody's ever seen that. The pure mechanics of understanding something. This is not a personal process. It's not. We make it personal because we're not very bright. What to do? You know? I mean, it's one of the great tragedies of humans. They appear to be so intelligent. I have so much trouble with bright people who are dumb. I mean, my whole life for the last 15 years has been nothing but bright people who are dumb. It's amazing. And that dumbness doesn't allow you to see your beauty. It doesn't. All I have to do is look at the body graph. And all I have to do is look at any of the body graph centers and see them open. And in that moment I know the malaise and the sickness, the deep sickness of the not-self mind and how it rules this planet. And how it keeps individuals away from their mythology. And you have one. You have one. Oh yeah, people like to know, oh, I came in on this cross. And I came in on that cross. Yeah. But boy, really begin to understand that. There are no mistakes. There are no accidents. It's program. Those crosses are purpose. Purpose. God, if there's anything on this planet that I've met that human beings want is to have a sense that their life is useful. I mean, there isn't anybody on this planet who doesn't want to feel like their being here on this planet is of value. And you can never get there until you live out your role. You can never get there until you live out the values of your cross. And you cannot get there just because you want to. When I first started telling people what had happened to me on the island, they said to me, Ra, well, yes, it is. By these minds. How profoundly it penetrates into, and it never, ever, it's a great joke, you know, and yet the undefined center is the only, and the very way the not-self rules you in the way it guides you to be wise. And the only way you can do that is when the mind moves from being an inner authority to an outer authority. When your mind stops ruling your life. When your mind stops making decisions for you. Only then. And you see, you can't get there by understanding that principle. You can't. You can't. You have to see that. You can't. The only way that you can transform your mind from inner authority to outer authority is that something else has to be your authority. And you've got to see you can trust it. Otherwise you can't get there. And as long as you trust what is the real authority in you, your mind is left with nothing but outer authority. It's just the way it is. Here, we begin something else. Over the next 3 days, what I'm going to do, because this is an introduction to a whole series of thought on the incarnative process, and that I'm going to go through the details of the first quarter, the quarter of initiation, and go through all of the profile variations of all of the 16 hexagrams of that quarter. I'm going to finish with the introduction to incarnation cross-sequencing. What I want to do in these 3 days is give you a general picture, a movie, if you will, of the coming, that's today, of the staying, that's tomorrow, and of the going, which is the final day, so that you can see how many steps are in this movie, that you can see the mechanical components of the movement, that you can see how many forms you've had already just in this incarnative process. How many forms you actually live with now in this life that you're normally not even aware of, even if you have knowledge and design. And then what happens to you on the mechanical road out. You know, the coming, the staying, and the going. So let's begin with the coming. The crystals of consciousness. I guess it's, for me, the deepest level of mystery are the components of what make us viable. The one that fascinates me the most is the magnetic monopole. It is an extraordinary thing, and given the success so far of human design being substantiated in its scientific premises, both in the genetic distribution of humanity into groupings, the fact that the neutrino, in fact, does have mass, that it is a fundamental programming agent, that hopefully, at least within my lifetime, I'd like to see it in my lifetime, they find the magnetic monopole, because when you find the magnetic monopole, you're going to unravel some of the most basic mysteries of the universe, and the most essential one, which is the mystery of mass. You know, nobody out there, no physicist out there really understands mass. They still don't truly understand what gravity is. Oh yes, they have all kinds of ways of understanding the movement of the apple as it falls to the earth. But the reality is that the underlying principles of what make gravity work, they don't know. So the monopole is something very important because it holds us together in the illusion of our separateness and in essence creates the identity, because that is the illusion. And more than that, it is the monopole that provides us with our fractal geometry. And when it comes to the incarnation business, nothing is more important than fractal geometry. Nothing. Nothing. I've watched this throughout my entire career as a messenger. There are only certain people that are on my fractal directly. Period. And those are the ones that I will have contact with. I'm not the kind of person that will ever have, it'll never be in my career where you walk into one of these rooms and there's 600 people. And it's not about the popularity of human design. It's about the tightness of my fractal. I have a very tight fractal, period. There are many, many other people who are much better at reaching out to larger numbers than I will ever be. They have different fractals. You know, the teacher that carries a 4, you know, is going to have much greater influence in the end in terms of pure numbers than I'll ever have as me. So fractal and geometry is something that is very, very important to all of us. You know, if you're a transpersonal being like I am on left angle, you recognize right away that your whole life is about people on your geometry. You meet them. And you're aware that you're meeting them because there's some place inside of you that has this cognition. All right, so the monopole is an essential ingredient. What we're going to look at in depth is that we're looking at the crystals of consciousness themselves. In the early years of human design, when I would give introductory lectures, they were really quite a movie. You know, I was trying to teach people physics and, you know, take them through the whole story. I mean, basically what you have is you have a yin principle and you have a yang principle. It's the basic thing. And within the yin principle, you have an archetypal crystal. We call it the design crystal. This is the prime design crystal. That is before it shatters. This is before the Big Bang. In other words, you have a yin principle, which is ultimately what we call the design crystal. And you have a yang principle, the penetrating principle, and this is the personality crystal. These two crystals, what we call the Big Bang, when these crystals meet, they shatter. I also want you to understand something about the shattering. Perspective is something very difficult for human beings. There was a great English teacher in the 50s, a student of Uspensky. His name was Rodney Collin. Brilliant, brilliant mind. And his whole thing was understanding perspective. He's the guy that figured out that a human life is equal to one breath of the earth. Sort of puts your life in perspective. You know, he described how if you're walking along on a sunny day and there's an army of ants walking in front of you and you step over them and you block the sun, just for the moment you're stepping over them, it's 2 weeks in their life without the sun. Perspective. And when we think about numbers, we have a problem. You know, for example, in this space, and for those of you that are virtual, I'm holding my thumb to my forefinger. In this space, 3 trillion neutrinos a second are passing through this space. I mean, think about that. We numbers, eh? 3 trillion a second. That's 3 million every second. Every space this size. Everywhere on this planet. Every moment of every day. All the time. And it will still last for billions and billions of years until our sun dies. And even then we'll be penetrated by stellar neutrinos. It never stops. You cannot imagine numbers like that. You cannot imagine in this moment how many instruments of consciousness are flowing through me and you. And you can't imagine for a moment what it means that all of the neutrino information that is pouring through all of us now is going to travel in space forever. All that information, all of it, forever, at nearly the speed of light. Everything that is done on this planet is informing the entire totality of being over time. Everything. When the first life popped up on this planet, the information, the neutrino information of that first life has already reached the extremities of our universe, what I call the biverse. So numbers. When the crystals shatter, you can't imagine numbers like that. Think about my hand, my arm. Right now, there are cells dying by the thousands. By the thousands. And all of these cells that are dying by the thousand, every single one of those cells has a design crystal. Single cells have a design crystal. So these thousands of cells that are dying in my body right now, they are all flying down. All those design crystals are flying down into the design crystal bundle. New ones are flying up to replace them instantaneously in the same place. I don't know why people are curious about the possibility of incarnation. I mean, it goes on in my hand all the time. Over and over and over again. And when the new cell comes in, it doesn't say, hey, have I been incarnated? You know, it gets to work. It's like us. You know, you pop back in and you get to work. You know, you have to deal with life and skin and breathing and the whole movie. So understand something about crystals and how many there are. And think about all of us and all the cells that are dying. And don't just think about that. Think about every blade of grass. Think about everything that's here. Think about all the incredible amount of crystals of consciousness that are here on this planet. It is mind-boggling. And yet it isn't. It's all a matter of perspective. So interesting how distorted our world is the moment we can see. Funny. I had a great experience the other day. I love baseball, American sport. Love baseball. Always loved baseball. Matter of fact, here in Ibiza, I used to play baseball on Sundays with a bunch of terrible freaks. It was awful, but nonetheless, it was fun. And the other day, I got some kind of a deal with some kind of website in the States. And I'm a Yankee fan. I want to listen to a Yankee game. And I I tune in on the web and I'm listening to this game, and it reminded me of being a kid in the 50s. In the 50s, I can remember listening to sports on the radio. And I realized something really incredible. The things that I heard, they're so deep inside of me. And the ones that I saw, I barely remember them. I mean, I really do. I just barely remember them. These eyes, they're cute. I mean, without these eyes, we would not have a successful Maya. So we need our eyes. But oh boy, are they distorting. Because you don't get to see. You don't see the neutrino ocean. We are swimming. We're actually levitated. All of us. Because in terms of physics, none of us touch the ground. All of us are always moving in space. All of us are floating in the nether. All of us are floating in the neutrino ocean. Literally, we don't see it. We don't see the crystals of consciousness as they're pouring out. We don't see it. We don't see it. It's hidden from us. The mechanics have always been hidden from us. If you go to my website, there's a little logo. It's an old 16th or 17th century woodcut. And it's a guy under an apple tree smashing his head through the sky to see the gears on the other side. And we're not allowed to see the gears. This is about seeing the gears. And one thing about seeing the gears is the moment that you get to that level, you get to the impersonal level. Impersonal. It's a mechanical process. There is so much pain in this life because everybody takes their fucking life personally. As if it's yours. It's like, I better worry about my life. It's not true. It's really a joke. I mean, we only have one responsibility. If you're awake, you realize this right away. There's only one responsibility. Be a good witness. And being a good witness doesn't mean anything. That's the joke. You're not doing anything. Without doing it, everything gets done, You just sit there, there's a ride, there's nothing else. The moment you think it's your ride, you've got a problem. The moment you want to fix your ride, you're fucked. It's over. The whole movie is just sit back and relax. Oh, is that difficult to do? It's difficult to do because we make the whole damn thing so personal. Half the world has an undefined ego. They're all running around saying, I've got to make my life better. I have to improve things. I have to prove that I'm worthy. I have to show that I'm a better human being. And while they're doing that, they fail. They don't live what's correct. The masters, all of them. It doesn't matter whether it's the Atman guru or, it's the harbor philosopher, as a longshoreman. It doesn't matter. They all tell you the same thing. It's not personal. Identification is a curse. The moment you're identified with your life, you're really in trouble. You're in trouble. You can't afford it. You don't get your life. You don't get what's yours. All the magic of this stuff, incarnation crosses all of these things. It's nothing but a bloody fairy tale if you're not living out your nature because you never get to see its truth. See, I can show you the truth of human design in the sense that you get to see if you follow your strategy, yes, things are different. But the truth of an incarnation, you have to live that to be that. You got to get there. It's not a given. It isn't. It's not a given. It's just there. You come in with the potential. Everybody comes in with the potential. We are binaries. You're going to be awake. You're going to be identified in a personalized life, or you're going to be unidentified as a witness. And these are not intellectual choices. You don't have to practice mantras. You don't have to shoot up. These are not choices. This is only the byproduct of correctness. And correctness is just mechanical. Now think about these crystals of consciousness. You have the Big Bang and there's this shattering. And it is an incredible shattering. If I could show you that shattering in slow motion, I could show you what real fractals are. Think about it. Imagine that you have a diamond-like crystal. When that crystal is going to shatter, the aspects that shatter, there are aspects that originally were part of each other. They were part of each other. And that a facet that's created fit one to the other, you know? So that if you could, like Humpty Dumpty, and you could put that whole shattered crystal back together again, you would really see the fractal lines. I want you to understand that every single one of you is carrying crystals of consciousness, and those crystals of consciousness are cut in a certain way. And the nature of that cut connects you to certain people and not to others. I know, for example, in my fractal connections, what I call first, second, third, and so forth generations. You know, like in this classroom. You know, in this classroom, there are a few first-generation fractals for me, and there's many second-generation fractals. In other words, they weren't the crystal connected to my crystal, but they were the crystal connected to the crystal that was connected to my crystal. And these fractal lines are enormously important for us, because it is along these fractal lines that we live eternally. Last year, or this year, pardon me, in April, when at the Abyss event, when I was teaching bases, one of the basic things to understand about your personality crystal is that it's the only aspect of you that is eternal at the base level. In other words, every incarnation you will have forever, you're going to incarnate with the same base. It's never going to stop. What I wear on my chest, you know, this is the 5th base. I've had this base forever. Every incarnation I have ever had, I have come with the same perspective. Now think about what that means. Every single personality crystal has 5 faces. Think about that. If you're imagining what a personality crystal looks like, you have to imagine it as a 5-sided crystal. And the whole thing about that 5-sided crystal is that only one facet works. Only one. Only one. Now, right away, you can begin to see the nature of limitation. You know, my base is about illusion. I'm a great teacher of illusion. I am the master of the Maya, and that's what I'm designed for. But I'm not a 4th base, and I'm not a 3rd, and I'm not a 2nd, and I'm not a 1st, and there's a lot of stuff missing. Different stuff. But still, the sum total of all that 5 together, that's really something. That's when you get the whole picture. And yet my eternal fractal line has always had the same blinders. Always. I get to see one way only. That's been my job forever. Your job forever. You've always carried the same base forever. Personality base, not design. Machines change. Vehicles change. Not your personality. It's eternal. It is relatively indestructible. Relatively. There are phases in the development of the totality in which crystals are annihilated en masse. It's where we get our ideas of hell, because the only place you can destroy them is in the heart of a sun. And so our ideas about eternal hellfire, because you cannot just evaporate them right away, it takes a long time to destroy a personality crystal. When my life comes to an end this time, this is my last journey. When it comes to an end this time, my crystals, both of them, are going to be destroyed. At least that's what I was told. Which means that I'm going to hell. You know? I mean, after all, what to do? It's not like I'm going to suffer, folks. I won't. And it's not the hell that's imagined. You know, it's so much about the nature of the mythology. Is that because we have layered our belief systems and our myths on top of mechanics that we did not understand, that basic truths are something that we do not get. You know, that's the point of the mechanics. So first of all, let's look at the difference between the way the personality crystal environment functions and the design crystal. When you're looking at this illustration, what you're looking at, and it's a very rough illustration, what you're looking at is around the Earth, you see that there are groupings, or they're individual crystal bodies. Now, these are actually called bundles. Now, these bundles are famous. They're famous. I mean, if you were to gather together all the so-called channelers in the world, you will see that the only thing that they're channeling are bundles. So there's the Christ consciousness bundle, and there's the Buddha field bundle, and there's the God knows what bundle. I mean, you name it, Pleiadian, Zodian, Zudian, and Hoodian. They're all out there. You know, you can get in touch with the Archangel Michael. He's got a bundle. They all got a bundle. They're working. Sort of. So the first thing I want you to understand is that if you could see the Earth, because here you're seeing it flat, if you could see the Earth and you could see crystals, you wouldn't see the Earth. As a matter of fact, it would be very beautiful. Because what you would see, pardon the joke, is a crystal ball. Okay? A nice, magical crystal sphere. It is our shell. And this should tell you something as well about the nature of how we receive neutrino information, is that we never get it clean. There are no spaces. We do not get it clean. We don't. So the neutrino information that is coming to us, and the most important, the sun, that neutrino information, 70% of our programming, it goes through the crystal sheath before it reaches us. And every single one of us belong to a bundle. And if you were to see, or could count, because I think counting would be better in this sense, all of the crystals that are in a bundle, they vary. Some bundles, as you will see when we get to death, because I will teach you about rogue bundles that become ghosts and demons and all kinds of things. Most of the bundles vary in size from 40,000 to millions of crystals. And the vast majority of the crystals, these are all personality crystals, the vast majority of the crystals never, ever, ever, ever incarnate. So the first thing to recognize about us as humans is that we are specialists. Because we are. We are representatives of the most important experiment of all, which is consciousness in form. This is the great experiment, is consciousness in form. And when you come in from your crystal bundle. And when you go out, you go back to your crystal bundle. Now, obviously, because personality crystals are eternal and they store that information, and please don't misunderstand that. It's not like your personality crystal goes back and says, hey, what a life, man. This was a great life. Let me tell you about it. You know, it doesn't work that way. But it simply means like adding an ingredient to any formula. It transforms the formula. And the moment your crystal goes back, it goes back into the bundle, and by going back into the bundle, it changes the nature of the bundle. I learned this years ago as a classroom teacher. In my first years here in Ibiza, I taught a little country school, where my kids go to school now. And I began to notice something that I had never noticed before. That if one kid was sick, the whole teaching experience with that class was different. And it wasn't because the kid was special. You know, there are occasions when it could have been a special child that would have made that kind of difference. No, it was just, one of the kids. And I began to see over the years that the moment that you change any aspect, it's quantum. The moment you change it, everything changes. So the moment the crystal goes back into the bundle, it changes the bundle. So each of us have a cycle. And that we have a cycle in which we come in, we go through the process of being this experimentation in form, and then we go back. That's our process. So when you're looking at this, the first thing to understand is that when I'm talking about the personality crystal bundles, there are tens of thousands of them, and in them, anything from tens of thousands to millions. So we're talking about an enormous number of crystals that sheath this planet. And out of that, only approximately whatever, we probably have, 20, 30 trillion personality crystals in form at any given time. Remember that it's more than just humans. There's animals and plants and so forth and so on. There's a vast collection of personality crystals that are here, that are coming in and that are going back. The one thing that I want you to grasp that's amusing, sort of, and is more explained when I get to the end and we talk about death, is that these bundles aren't necessarily up there. In other words, that the realm of the personality crystal is within our atmosphere. In other words, everything from terra firma upwards. In other words, a personality crystal bundle with millions of crystals of consciousness can come swooping through this room. And they do, by the way, not necessarily that one, but I have been I'm somebody that can smell them, sort of. You can feel them, just like people feel ghosts or whatever. They're there. They're all over the place. And of course, there are people who, as we will see, will interpret that as Jesus or the Virgin Mary or, the reincarnation of this or that, or it's Rama, or it's, God knows what. The way in which we interpret a connection to that kind of energy, of course, dependent on our level of consciousness. So the first thing to understand about personality crystal bundles is that they are environments, they are unique, they're differentiated from each other, which is why we have various connections with them, that we personally are connected to a specific bundle, and we'll go back to that bundle. Now, as you see, when we get to death, not everybody makes it back safely. That's another story, which is why we end up with ghosts and goblins and things that go bump in the night and all of that kind of funny stuff. That's what I love about this. You see, I like the stories. I love the gods and myths and all of those things. But I'm not going to accept that Mary was impregnated by the gods any more than I'm going to accept in reality that Zeus gave birth to his daughter out of his thigh. I mean, I'll only accept the virgin birth if you accept that Zeus gave birth out of his thigh. Then everything's okay and it's fair. I don't want to prove myths real. I don't care about the myths. They're nice stories. That's good. Everybody has a right to a good story. But underneath the story is a mechanical simplicity that unifies all of us, that carries no prejudice of my God's better than your God, that doesn't carry any of the superficial stuff that doesn't matter. It's part of our primitive development. That the only thing that we'll worship is what we don't understand. The real stupidity of humans. Let's believe in something we do not understand. That's not what we're here for. It's not. We are here to see what is real and works within the context of illusion, in the Maya. I know, I've taught it. Everybody's designed to look for God. That's why we've got a 19th gate. Everybody's under pressure to find spirituality. Everybody. Everybody. But to find the spirituality. Whether you're a Hindu, a Buddhist, or a Jew, you may end up having to go back to the same bundle. You're actually doing the same damn job. It has nothing to do with the form you happen to be into in this life. It has to do with a vast process. And that these bundles are all around us. They're filtering the consciousness field. The other side of the coin is the mystery of the design crystal bundle. There's only one. There are sort of nodules of it, but the fact is that there basically is only one. It's vast within the context of the numbers that are involved. Because after all, even the inanimate object has a design crystal. In trying to describe to people what my mystical process was, in terms of my encounter with the voice, I lived in a very ancient ruina. There hadn't been a house in about 300 years. And I lived in what was left of that house, which was the first child's bedroom, which had been had a roof put on it. The house had been abandoned years ago, about 150 years beforehand. It had been finally completely abandoned because there was a cistern under the house, and it ran dry. One of the things of this island, it's a water problem. And so there were no water, and there was this huge empty well. When I had my experience, the design crystal bundle came into that cistern. I was in very close proximity to that core, which is what gives me my dark coloring. The forces of light, so-called. The prophets of light, so-called. The worshippers of light, so-called. They only deal with unique personality bundles. You know, my teacher was the design. That's why I bring mechanics. That's why I'm a mechanical messenger. I bring the form principle. Everybody's had enough light teaching for the last 6,000, 7,000 years. You know, the essence is the form principle. So one of the things to grasp, and you can sort of see it in that illustration, is that buried there in the earth, you know, there is this one crystal. It's been given many names. Shambhala is one of the names it was given. You know, this center force that is within the earth. You know, the great force of the mother, if you will. And every machine, I call them machines, every bio-machine, every inanimate is going to be a byproduct of that design crystal bundle. And so we have this basic duality, this basic dichotomy that's there, the penetrating personality field, you know, that's controlling the way information comes in, you know, that is moving all over the place, that separates us into groups, you know, so that we don't all get the same feed, so we go back to different neighborhoods, you know, all this personality stuff. But the form principle is unified. We all come from a core form principle, and that form principle is the design crystal bundle. The mechanics of the movement of the crystals. We're talking about coming into form. Right? This is the first thing. It's about coming into form. And the first thing about coming into form is the understanding that in order for conception to take place, before conception takes place, the crystal, the design crystal, of what is going to be the design crystal, of what is going to be the fetus that is going to become ultimately a human being when it gets its personality, that design crystal has to be called. I mean, it's sitting there in the earth. I mean, in that sense, it's below the mantle, and it has to be called. And again, we come to my favorite mystery, the magic of the magnetic monopole. Because the magnetic monopole does something that I love. It sings. You know? I mean, I don't have any other way poetically to describe that. It sings a song. I mean, it can't just ask for any old design crystal, can it? No, of course not. See, look, the magnetic monopole is in charge of your fractal. So it's in charge of your geometry. And being a parent of 3 children, I know what it means to have somebody brought into your geometry, and they better be the right ones. See? And so the whole thing about understanding that there's going to be a child coming is to understand this is a fractal connection. This is a geometry. And you already have a relationship at the monopole level. Already have a relationship to that fractal and bringing in on that fractal a design crystal. Now, by the way, sometimes that song will be heard by more than one ear. So that we end up with twins or triplets or quadruplets or the madness of the modern age, 7 or 8, in which you know that there's been real distortion, but we're designed to be mutated. So all of those become possibilities. But the mechanical thing to understand is that the magnetic monopole in the male, this is the male part of the principle, the magnetic monopole in the male, what it does is it sends out a frequency. Oh, everything is frequency. In the beginning, the Word. It's all frequency. Whether you see or you hear or you smell, it's all frequency. And we are nothing more than a vibrating mass and vibrating in space. You can actually hear the music of a human being if you use the right kind of measurement tools. In the same way we can measure the music of the sun. And it's something to understand that your magnetic monopole emits a frequency. And in the moment that you are going to be the receptacle, It doesn't mean, by the way, that conception will take place. It just means there's a timing mechanism. Now, I know things that beyond what I teach, otherwise I wouldn't be a good teacher. And I know my own process that, for example, I know precisely when I'm fertile. And not fertile in the human sense. Fertile in the truly transpersonal mechanical sense. In other words, there's a regular cycle for me in which my magnetic monopole starts calling in a design crystal. And I better be careful, because it'll deliver it. And I got enough children. So it's something to think about. So look, there's the magnetic monopole. It's sitting there and it emits a frequency. And when it emits that frequency goes directly to the design crystal bundle. And there's a little design crystal in there going, it's time. They're calling me. This is my song. This is my entrance. I love that, I grew up with variety television. And variety television always starts with a theme song. Well, every magnetic monopole starts life with a theme song. It sings this wonderful song to the design crystal, that comes riding in on the beat. It comes riding in on that frequency, hones into that frequency, enters into the male solar plex center, into the place what we call the sixth gate. And this is the beginning of the incarnative process. Very important to grasp this. This is the real music of life. And it is in the beginning is the Word. It really is. It's a magical, magical expression. Because it is. It's a song that brings you in. It's a frequency that calls you. It's time. Come on up. Let's get the show started. So this is the first movement. The first movement is the monopole sends out its frequency. The frequency goes into the design crystal bundle. There is going to be that design crystal, picks up the frequency, comes back. Enters into the male solar plex system. The sacral center. I have now, there's probably 500 or 600 hours of me stored on discs and God knows what about sacrals. There is nothing like sacrals. There is nothing. Coming from somebody who has a totally open sacral, no activations, I want to tell you there is nothing like a life. Imagine how that works as a simple image. Imagine that every generator was a projector in the sense of a movie projector. And the illusion of the world is created by all those movie projectors operating. And where life begins, is in the sacral. And obviously in the sacral of the female. And that there is this movement. So at the moment of conception, what is actually happening is that through this channel, that's why the 59.6 is called the channel of mating and so forth and so on, channel of reproduction, that what happens in this time is that there is, with that channel, there is the movement of the design crystal that is in the male solar plex. It moves through that channel and it enters into the female sacral center. Now, there's all this stuff about the sperm and the egg. When there is, I always remember Woody Allen's movie, the Philip Roth novel. What was it called? Everything you ever wanted to know about sex but were afraid to ask. And there's this incredible movie where Woody Allen looked very cute as a sperm, by the way. With a little sperm hat on. And there were, these tens of thousands of sperm, all cranking each other up that they were the ones that were going to make it. And, there's this mad, crazy rush, to get there to get in the egg. Now, look. That crystal that's sitting in the male sixth gate That crystal is sitting in one sperm only. And this sperm doesn't give a damn about the others. You know, they're lost and confused and will wander around for years. But that one, it knows where to go because it knows how to open the door. Because it knows where the door is. This is the magic. And he goes right there to that door and says, "Excuse me, I'm here. Open up." Boom. And in it goes. And the moment it goes in, we have the beginning of the potential of fertilization. Now there's something to understand. Because there are so many varieties, possibilities of physical conception. For example, the 59-6 as a channel. If you don't want to become pregnant, if you're a woman, no matter how many crystals a guy's carrying, as long as you don't move in your aura into any environment that will bring you the 59-6, as long as there's no transit that will bring the 59-6 for 72 hours, you will not get pregnant. Period. And most pregnancies are when you go to the grocery store in the morning. I mean, it's amazing how many people are screwed in grocery stores. You have no idea. Honestly, you have no idea. You know, your man gets the crystal going into his solar plex. He gets horny as hell. I know this process. Gets horny as hell, makes love, you know, and nothing happens because there's no 59-6. Nothing, right? And then his partner gets up in the morning and goes into the grocery store. You know, and she's standing at the checkout counter with a 6 behind her and a 59 in front of her, and she's pregnant right there, right then, whack. So, if you want birth control, don't go anywhere. Check the calendar. Be very careful. Okay? Otherwise, you're in trouble. Because any grocery store will do. Get on the bus, it's done. Okay? I mean, the moment you walk into a communal aura, you've had it. There is no chance of escape. So something really to understand about this process, because in the early years when I first started teaching people this, people would say, yeah, but, you know, we didn't have the 59-6 and this and that, and, you know, how come, and so forth and so on. Well, understand how it works. You will also see that this frame, 72 hours, is very important at the beginning and very important at the end. These are bookends. This is an essential time formula. So fertility operates in this window. That's the first thing. And as you will see, the Bardo stage, the potential for transcendence at the end of your life, that this also operates on the same time frame window. It's also going to be a 72-hour window. Again, the binary of what life is. You've got this window when you're coming in. You've got this window when you're going out. You have to beware of, in that essence, both of them. So that's the mechanics of crystal conception. And we'll move to the next slide, and we start a process. I was given so many forms. I think it was one of the things that impressed me the most about the information that I was given. That it wasn't some kind of, it didn't throw everything into the same basket, because I knew things simply didn't belong in the same basket. You know, it was that great comment of Liz Green about astrology, when she said that, well, the chart of a chicken could be the chart of a human. And right away that tells you something about limitation. None of us are chickens. And it wouldn't help us to have our design done chicken-wise, because bird designs are quite limited, as those of you who have seen the design of forms know. We have had many, many forms. We. Us. Because you see, coming into this life, that the moment that conception takes hold, that what you're actually going through is a form development process. And a form development process is going to get you to a place where you can support this level of consciousness. In other words, our self-reflective consciousness that allow us to be, in terms of, our ability to be at the top of the chain pool, and the food chain and all of that stuff, this is our great capacity. We've got wonderful machines, and out of these wonderful machines, we can display all of our various talents and skills. But you've got to have the machine. It's one of the things to understand about all this nonsense about afterlife. This is hardware. This body of mine, hardware. It's like your computer. And somebody gives you a program, software. Our crystals, these are software instruments. And you take that software and you slam it into the computer and voila, us. You got a great piece of hardware. After all, these bodies are really incredible things. You got a great piece of hardware, and you got the software inside, and it's got something to work with. Brain, mind, whatever you want to call it that. Now, what do you think happens when you take the software out? Have you ever held up a disk of software and tried to get it to perform a program for you? Or a function? Okay, now, do your thing. Come on. No screen, no audio, no buttons, no hands, no eyes, no nose, no mouth, no light, no nothing. No nothing, just software. Truly understand that. And the first thing to understand about this moment is that you're not building software. You're building a piece of hardware. You're building a bio-vehicle. And that bio-vehicle is not a life. May all the Catholics display their infuriation now. This is not a life. This is not a human being. And it cannot be a human being until it receives its personality crystal. And that means the third trimester in a normal pregnancy. It's so important to understand that this is the building of a machine. And as I take you through these steps, you'll see that. It's not about being conscious and knowing all these things. It's not about us being ready to experience it. The witness hasn't arrived. There is no personality. It's just meat. Meat. People don't get it. Incarnation. Incarni. You live in Spain, you ask for carne, they know what you want. You want meat. Incarnate. You come back into the meat. That's all this is. It's just that. And to see that what we're looking at is that we're not building software here. We're building the meat package. This is an automobile factory. We're building a model. And the model, given the formulas of the nature of design, the model followed certain steps in its developmental structure. Until you finally get to a place where that car has a back seat. After all, you cannot be a witness and drive. Not allowed. The monopole drives. The design crystal gives you the vehicle. The personality crystal sits in the back seat and looks out the windows. But you've got to have a back seat. And that back seat, we call it a neocortex. These frontal lobes, how wonderful they are. Our self-reflective consciousness gives us the opportunity to be able to experience as a witness the nature of life itself. Through our perspective, obviously. But you don't just get there. They've got to build that machine. And it takes 88 degrees of movement of the sun to build the vehicle. It's the basic binary of the whole gestation process. You begin with 88 degrees, you finish with 88 degrees, and in the middle, it's up and down. In other words, the middle is what moves. So you've got premature births, like me, I was a month early, or like my son, a couple of months early. You know, you have some that are slightly late. The whole thing is you have these two fields, one on one side that builds the basic vehicle. How long that vehicle operates before it gets its personality, that interim, the interregnum space, doesn't really matter. I mean, it doesn't really matter in the sense of the developmental phase. It matters most to the mother. I mean, it's the most difficult phase for the mother. Most difficult phase for the mother in the sense that the mother is being deeply conditioned by what is called trinary crystal consciousness, and we'll deal with that as we move through. But I want you to see again the binary of the mechanics. So you've got this first period of 88 degrees, and in this first period, you build the vehicle. And so all the basic components of what you're going to need, you know, fingers, and, you know, all of this stuff, the vehicle is built in these stages and goes through a very, very set process. In this illustration, by the way, what we have here is simply the graphing of the moment of conception. In other words, this is our starting gun. And it's very important to have this starting gun. I mean, it's one of the most miraculous things. I've been very fortunate, particularly with my eldest son, in that I knew to the minute the conception time. And the analysis that I've been able to do over the years of his information is extraordinary because I was able to go down to the deepest level of his design. And on top of that, I had exact time for his birth. So, you know, I had this ability to really look at the information of his development, and as you will see, because we'll go through it, there are so many insights you can have into the limitation of the vehicle. We all have limitations. So the importance of this chart is not about analyzing this chart for its values. This is simply your starting point because, as you will see, the developmental cycle over the next 88 degrees, it's based on movement of the sun. And that movement begins with the moment of conception. So that when we go to, I'm going to bypass just for the web people, I'm going to bypass the mother and conditioning keys for a moment now and go to illustration 8. This is stage 1. And if you look at this, you'll see that stage 1 is at 2 degrees of solar arc. In other words, that from the moment of conception, it still takes 2 full degrees of the sun before the very beginning of the program begins. And you will notice that in these 2 degrees, it will go to 4 degrees, that in this space between 2 and 4, you're guaranteed the 72-hour period from conception to fertilization. And what's very important about this first stage is, first of all, the visual. Look what's there. What's there is the throat center and nothing else. And the throat center has absolutely no gates. And what it's called is energy conversion. Now, this is the first step. Everything about the throat is that the throat is the master of our physical body. That's why it's so difficult with people who have their minds connected to their throats and are cut off. You know, splits like that. You know, because the throat has such power. And it can be so uncomfortable for them because they say things that they can't get done and so forth and so on. But the thing to recognize about the throat is the underlying nature of the throat is the thyroid and the parathyroid. Now, everything about the development of the basic infrastructure is rooted in the endocrine glandular system. And so when you're looking at the throat and you're looking at the thyroid system is all about conversion of energy. This is metabolism. So that when we're looking at somebody in their design and we're looking at their throat, if we see somebody with an undefined throat, we know that they have inconsistent metabolism. So, for example, if they're a child, they may have trouble processing food. They may only grow in certain spurts. They may not talk very quickly when they're first born. It may take them longer to learn how to develop their throat system. They may have problems with their weight. It's one of the common things about the thyroid. So one of the things to recognize is that the life process, the building of the package, begins with the throat. This is the master gland. The throat has 11 gates, has more gates than any other center. It is our voice. It is the potential for manifestation. It is the center in that sense of our being. And as such, this is the gate that opens up, this is the stage, this first stage, that opens up the potential to manifest as life. And so for the first 4 degrees, or up till the 4-degree point, this is the window of life itself. So in that moment when you're going through that process and the female is going through her 72 hours and she goes to the grocery store, the moment that she's into that, here is the moment. If she's fertilized right away, nothing happens for those days anyway. Even if she biologically has a sense of it. Because it's still going to get there, the program has a way of dumping anything. And those opening 2 degrees is a way of saying, no, this won't work. These are mechanical things. So by the time you get to 2 degrees of arc, only then, this is the moment, this opens up the whole thing. So from 2 degrees to 4 degrees, you have the opportunity to manifest as a vehicle, not as a human. Remember that. We are the result of the binary, of our personality within the form. And until there's a personality, there is only a form principle. And if you look cellularly at 2 degrees, that is approximately 2 days. Every degree of the sun is approximately a day. Approximately. So if you look at the cellular division, because basically that's all you're going to see by the 2nd day, if you look at fertilization under a microscope, what you're going to see is cellular division at that point. In other words, the potential for life is there. The potential to continue that growth process is initiated in this stage. And we go to stage 2. And when we go to stage 2, again, you can see the progression here. Now we move to 4 degrees of arc. And you'll see that this stage goes from 4 to 8 degrees. So when you get here at 4 degrees of arc, you immediately see something different. You see the emergence of the self, or the G center as we call it. Now one of the things to understand about the G center is that the biological affiliation of the G center is the liver. If you're familiar with Hindu Brahmin mythology, you will know that all life is incarnated via the liver, interestingly enough. And if you look at the biological development of a fetus, the liver comes first. It's one of the most extraordinary things for me is the intense importance of the liver. And those of you that are involved in this process of deconditioning and going through the strategic process, you get it told to you that it takes 7 years to change the cells in your body, and that's why we have this 7-year deconditioning process. But recognize something interesting. The liver cells don't die. You can kill them, but they don't reproduce. It's the only example of all the cells in the body. There are a few cellular systems that are there for the life. That's why it's so devastating to do damage to your liver. And it's why people who have open selves can be so vulnerable, particularly people with open cells who get into alcohol, because they really have an unprotected liver in that sense. So the beginning of life, in a way, is when the liver appears. And so we have the appearance here at 4 degrees of arc of the G center, and this is the descent, and you can see the channel going down, this descent literally into form. The other thing is to understand something about the nature of the G center is that this is the place that houses your magnetic monopole. In other words, this is the true center of your being. Physically, it's here in the sternum. So in that sense, it's really in the middle of your form as well. So this is the central point. And of course, the moment that there is this opening of the G center, there is this ability to set your geometry. And of course, the moment you set your geometry, you've got this fractal line that you can follow. And of course, what you're starting with is the cells that aren't going to die. Think about that. That's what you're starting with. So we're all born we all come into conception with the opportunity to be pure. And as you will see, it's not possible. It's not. If you go back, that's a movie. Excuse me. I'm going to go back here and show you the illustration that I passed. the influence here of the mother. Now, if you look at this, you will see that on the lower left, the upper right, that's the mother's design. I think that's her human design. If you look at the other graph, though, what you get to see in the other graph is the activations that she has in the developmental field that creates all of the centers. In other words, the mother is always influencing the development of the child. Always. The only exception to that is a mother that doesn't have anything in those channels. So if you looked at all of those channels in the lower left, and we're going to go through this whole sequence, all the various stages, the 10 stages, when you see all the 10 stages, if the mother has any activations in those 10 stages, she's affecting the development of that vehicle. Now that's not bad. It's just simply to understand that conditioning happens before you're even human. Conditioning happens when you're just making the meat. It's already there. And of course, you can begin to see how important the contribution of the mother is. Because it's actually the mother that frames the potential of the coming life. Because it's the mother that has the most profound influence on that coming life, because the mother sets frameworks by having activations within this primary grid. And as the fetus develops, for example, if the mother at stage 2, and I'm going to return here to stage 2, if the mother has, for example, the 31-7, if she has this channel in her design, then her aspect is going to influence the development of that child and that whole child's theme of suffering. Descent into form. Hey, listen, if you're going to be in one of these vehicles, you're going to suffer. You are. You're going to suffer whether you're awake or not. The smartest man that I know of was Krishnamurti. And I only mean that I was never a follower. I'm not a follower of anybody. And I only read Krishnamurti after I had become Ra Uru Hu, because I had people around me who had been close to him. And I read a diary of his that he wrote somewhere in California. And this guy suffered from absolutely unbelievable migraines. I mean, he was devastated by migraines. Black pain. I grew up with a sister of mine who suffered from it. It can be an awful thing for people who have migraines. And while he was suffering through these migraines, he was keeping a journal. And in that journal, he was able to reach a place of grasping no choice without the mechanics. Now, I'm a smart man. I never would have gotten there. I had to have some big ugly hammer smack me on top of the head, and kick me real hard and drag me around and stuff it into me and make me see it. And yet he suffered. Because being in form is suffering. If your wiring is fucked up, you're going to suffer. It's not your fault. In the experiment of form, we get all kinds of forms. You get a Stephen Hawking. You get all kinds of forms. It is the nature of being. We are here to experience all of these forms. And at the moment that you're in flesh does not mean if you're awake that there's no pain. That there's no suffering when someone you love goes. That there's no horror when you see ugliness in front of you, whatever the case may be. It's one of the things to understand about being in a body, is that this is the most fragile vehicle you can imagine. You can kill it like that. We know that. We're such good killers, us killer monkeys. We're bred for killing. Life is so fragile. It's so easy. Bang, gone. And it's one of the things to understand about this descent into form, is that it's the price we pay. And you see, if you don't treat these vehicles correctly, you're going to hurt from them. And whether that hurt is physical or that hurt is psychological, you are going to suffer in these bodies. The ancients called Earth the planet of suffering. true. I meet nothing but suffering on this planet. The not-self has elevated suffering to a universal art that everyone participates in. And suffering has become the whole point. You know, when somebody comes to me and say they don't want to suffer anymore, it's a good joke. And why not? I mean, maybe it's interesting suffering. You know, why don't you just suffer correctly? Well, why don't you just experience suffering? You know, why don't you witness suffering? You know, why do you have to take that personally? I mean, it's not your fault. So many people suffer over things they think is their fault. You know, or they suffer over things because they think it's somebody else's fault, which is even worse. They're always suffering. It's such a joke. And you can't tell them that because they get pissed. But I'm suffering. Don't you care about me? Some guy came to me one day in the States, in Taos, early years of doing this. Some guy came to me and he said, you know, I'm dying. And I said, yeah, me too. I mean, you know, what to do, baby? You know, this is... No, he said, no, you don't understand. I'm dying. I said, yeah, you don't understand. Me too. He said, you're making fun of me. I said, no, I'm not making fun of you. I'm telling you the truth. I mean, after all, the moment you come, you're ready to go. Well, it's true at any moment. At any moment, there's 100 million people a year that don't make it past 6 months. Wow, we're ready to go the moment we come. It's a heavy place. And after all, the whole thing about the mechanics is that nobody upstairs cares. Because there is nobody upstairs to care. There's just a mechanism. All right, they're dead. Throw another one in. Send them back. Do it again. I mean, the hardest thing for me in these years has been the fact that I can look at people and know, eh? And it's like, hey, come on, drop dead. Do it again. If it wasn't for the fact that I made money from them, I'd tell them. You know, drop dead. You know, because I usually buy a lot of books. And there's no point. Anyway, we all come in to suffer. And that's the whole point. Listen, you got to really see that, what it is to be human. The whole game is set against us. Have you ever watched people walk? Have you any idea how funny we look? Do you understand the mechanics of walking? Do you know that when you walk, you're actually trying to throw your face into the ground? And the only thing that saves you from breaking your nose is you manage to get the next foot out? Who designed this machine? I mean, it's not like it's the greatest machine in the... You know, we could improve it, I guess. And the moment you come into one of these machines, you're in trouble right away. If your mother doesn't have milk, you're done. You know, Ethiopia pictures. You know, you're done. What are you going to do? We're so vulnerable from the moment we come into this world. And it's one of the first things to recognize is that the moment you're concerned about that, you really have problems all the time. All the time. It just personalizes all of that. It gets you deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into trying to alleviate the suffering you can never alleviate. Jesus, if we were meant not to suffer, there would be no emotions. We have to understand all that. We have to. And without suffering, there's no bliss. I'll take 10 sufferings for one bliss. That's a good trade. I mean, I know those moments. They're okay. They're worth 10 sufferings. You know, for 30 sufferings, I'll take awakening. You know, it's okay. It is life. So it's a very important stage for us to understand that when you come into these forms, you do not come into the Superman model or Superwoman model. You come into the immediate vulnerable model, the immediate model that says, oh my God, my mother's going to program me. You know, immediate problems right away. Not only that, you've got to get out of there, which we'll get to. I mean, you know how many children don't make it out of there? You got to get out. You know, life, this is fragile, all of this. It's a very fragile experiment. It's like life on Earth, you know. It always used to bother me that people were worried about Earth. You know, they're worried about Mother Earth, that she's being polluted, depleted, whatever. I mean, we're mushrooms on the Earth's skin. You know, with one little shudder, she blows us all away. Didn't give a damn about it. And life on the surface of this planet is so vulnerable, it is unbelievable. You ask the dinosaurs. You know, 500 million years, man, they strutted around here. Their world, king of the heap. One lousy stone from the sky. I mean, a rock. You know, you work for 500 million years, you figure you're secure, right? Eh? We're here 4 million years and we think we're secure. Are we nuts? One rock, whack, bang, gone. Eh? All the gone. And all these funny little rodents crawling around saying, hey, it's ours now. Yeah, right. The third stage. The third stage is 8 degrees of the sun, and you can see we have a geometric progression. We've gone from 2 degrees of arc to 4 degrees of arc to 8 degrees of arc. You'll see we'll go to 16 degrees of arc. Here at 8 degrees of arc, it's the 10th illustration, we have the disembedding of the monopole. This is when they bring out the trumpets. You know? There's somebody coming. This is really the moment. There's also something else about this that I love. See, the magnetic monopole and the design crystal. You know, they're together like this. It's like the monopole is embedded in the crystal. So that design crystal that the male calls up has this monopole embedded in it, and it goes in, and the monopole's directing it. Now think about the magnetic monopole. It sits in the G center, and the question of the G center is there love? And the answer is no, not until you die. And it's not an answer that human beings like particularly. See, look, we have a cosmic magnetic monopole in the sense that in the original design crystal was the original monopole. And that monopole is holding together what we call the biverse. And love doesn't live here, it's somewhere out there. And what the monopole is trying to do is bring back all the design crystals. You know? Come back here. Come back here. Because the moment you come back here, we're all one again. So think about this moment of the disembedding of the monopole. When the monopole is going to stand alone in the G center. The moment it stands alone in the G center, if it could speak and think as a witness does, the first thing that it will say is, where's love? Where's love? Where's love? And it's going to do it its whole life. And of course, we, crazy people that we are, we run around our whole lives going, where's love? I think I have it. No, I used to have it. Well, tomorrow I'll have it. No, I have love over here. No, there's some love over there. Is there love over there? You know, all you need. Anyway, we're not here to find love. And I hate to sound like a guru. We are here to be love. And that's very different. We will never find it. We cannot find it. The only way you're going to find it is to die, and then you lose your hardware, and you can't even enjoy it. Because that's the moment, and I imagine that's the only way that real love works. You know, when you're dead, it's perfect. You know, you notice all these famous dead couples? Their love was, it's eternal now. Yes, it's perfect. You can turn it into any kind of myth you like. So the first thing after suffering is that we end up with a machine that's going to spend its entire existence looking for something that it can't find. And it's really the story of what it is to be a human. Human beings spend their lives trying to be what they're not, trying to find the open centers that they're not, trying to live out the conditioned field and make it consistent. And in this particular stage, what you're getting is that in this moment of separation, the hunt is on. And you're only going to realize that there is no love to find when there's nothing to look for, because it's everywhere, and it's you. And you can only know that when you're correct. You can't know it any other way. You see, unless you can love yourself, there is no love. There is no love. It starts with you. First, foremost. If you cannot love yourself, you do not have love for others. You can't. You can't. Because the very magic of existence exists in everybody's potential to love themselves as a perfect example of them. I mean, that's the goal of awakening. You know, I am a perfect example of me. I know it sounds silly, but it's true. You know, I am a 5-1 ego manifester clarion. And I live it, and I breathe it. It's my existence. It's what I am. I'm a cliche of my own design. It's perfect, and I don't have to do anything. And I'm not looking for love. As a matter of fact, the greatest irony of my life is that more people love me than I ever imagined was even possible. You know, I find it even difficult to grasp. You know, because that was never on my agenda. You know, and the moment I became myself, I mean, I'm not a great loving person, as you well know. The moment I became myself, all these people liked me. You know, it's like, what a joke. I mean, what a joke. I mean, my joke. So it's the thing to recognize about these stages into form. And of course, this is the theme of direction, the monopole. And that theme of direction is to find love. Now understand at a very simple level how important this is. Because what this theme is really saying is that we're not coming into a world in which our machine is designed to function alone. You know what I mean? What it's really saying is, hey, look, this machine that we're developing, this is a machine that's meant to integrate with other machines. In other words, you need other packages in order to be able to, and of course that's the search. We end up looking at the other and saying, is it them? You know, are they for us? You know. Next illustration. That should read 16, not 18. I don't know why. That's just a typo. Stage 5. And this is the creation of the heart center, and you can see we're moving through the channel of initiation. And this is the motor of competition. You know, I got all these intellectual lefties in my life. And, you know, they got all these problems about money and work. These are the people that are always crying at me, my courses are too expensive. And I tell them to go stuff it. And the fact of the matter is that we are designed to be deeply, deeply, deeply competitive. As you will see, one of the major stages in our development is that when we get to near the close of the building of the machine, we are built to kill. So all of you peaceniks and lovers of genteel ways and so forth and so on, let's keep the binary in perspective. You know, this is where the killer monkey is made. You know, my name for modern Homo sapien. Because that's what we are. And it's built on our competitive drive. We're the top of the food chain. We got half the forest in the supermarket laid out on cold slabs. You know, we control nature. Not only control it, now we genetically manipulate it. You know, we are number one in competition, and when we ran out of competition with the beast, you know, we just heightened our competition with each other. We are eternally competitive. Look, you cannot be in form unless you're ready to fight for life. One of the most astonishing things about the Holocaust was how amazing human tenacity for life is. It is unbelievable what a human being will put up with and stay alive. The pain, the degradation, the punishment, the torture, you name it. And there's human being going, I'm still here, I'm still here, I'm still fighting. This is us. I mean, we're the toughest, meanest creature on the block. We are. And you know, all of this struggle that we have in trying to control our societies and what we call criminal or violent elements, how illusionary and foolish all of that is. They simply need to be correct. You're not going to get rid of violence. You're not going to get rid of these things. As long as we are in these forms, we are as likely to love as we are to kill. It's just the way it is. And as you'll notice in this movement, we're very likely to kill for what we love, or what we think we love. And we're very likely to kill to get there. And boy, are we competitive in love, aren't we? And are we competitive in our directions, aren't we? I'm going to get there first. You know, if I don't do it, somebody else will. So competition is something. This is the theme of survival. This is the power of the ego. In the 26th gate of the ego is our thymus and our T cells. And I truly want you to understand something about T cells. T cells make Nazis look like schoolgirls with cookies. You know? I mean, you want to meet the devil? You go inside your body at microscopic level and introduce yourself to a T cell. And it will eat you alive. Instantly. I mean, it makes horror movies with big alligators look, you know, benign. We have these savage, savage, savage warriors in us. They keep us alive. They protect us. They'll eat anything they don't recognize. And if you think that that only stays there at that level, see, when I look out at any classroom and I look at women in my classroom, I always know that if they have a baby and they're under threat, you've got the most savage beast you have ever seen in your whole life. Scare any man to death instantaneously. You know, all of this sweet, well, we should, and blah, you put them in that situation, I want to tell you, you see this come out. They'll kill you. Quick. Quick. Unless we come to grips with our physical nature, we can never transcend it. As long as you're in the grip of the frailty of being human, because part of our frailty is that in order to be at the top of the chain pool, we have violent capacities. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten there. They would have eaten us. Hey, did you hear that Roy of Siegfried and Roy got eaten by a tiger last night? Ah, shit, I love that. Yeah, in Las Vegas, on stage. I mean, he's not dead, so I don't wish him any harm. But you know, trained tigers really bother me. I don't want to see tigers trained on a stage going through loops. This tiger didn't like that. You know? You play coochie-coochie with one of these days, you know, drag them off the stage by his neck. And you see, if we weren't smart and violent, they would have eaten us a long time ago. All of us. We've had some very heavy competitors. Really heavy competitors. Bears and dogs and mean creatures. But we're smart. The greatest competition we had in the last 40,000 years is from dogs. They beat us to the food all the time. All the time. You know, so what do? You say, hey, look, let's be friends.
We're so smart, eh? And then we chain them and beat them when they don't do what we want. We make them dependent on us. Hey, I'll give you free food. You know? We got rid of our greatest competition, turned them into man's best friend. We're smart, we're violent, and the moment that you're living out the not self, that combination's devastating. This is an ugly planet where people are brutalized every day. It's an ugly, ugly, ugly place, full of ugly, violent people. And the violence is only ugly because they're ugly. They're not correct. They're not aware. We have these forces for a reason. The reason is to provide survival. You put me in the middle of nowhere, it won't kill me. I'll find a way. We're here to find a way. We're here to survive. We're here to put up anything. This is our power. And if you're correct, that power that lies within you does not become a problem. Does not become something inflicted on the other. It doesn't. See, our consciousness is far beyond our biology. And the potential of awakeness is far beyond our biology. I don't need this body anymore. I'm not ready to go. I love the Maya, and I enjoy the beauty of it. But I mean, my body is a limitation to me. It's a limitation. There's so many things that I understand that I can't do with this body. Because I can't. Because it's a limitation. I mean, it's only so far. And it's not going to catch up. It's taken thousands of years to get us to the point that in 2027, trickle by trickle, there will be this new mutate of form that slowly comes in to the planet. This vehicle's at the end of its run. We're not going to make these things any better. This vehicle, this design, this model, we're not going to get a fresh model. This is our limitation. So the whole process of coming into form is to understand what it means to come into form. It means there is suffering in the vehicle. It means the vehicle must be competitive to survive. And it means that those are frameworks that the passenger has to live with. Because when the passenger looks out of its eyes, it sees what its vehicle can do. It experiences this phenomenon. And it's not about suffering over suffering. It's not about being violent because you can. You know, ultimately, it's simply about recognizing that these forms will operate correctly if you treat them correctly. Okay, we're going to have a 10-minute break. The gate that's coming out of the splenic center, but it doesn't have the gate that's coming out of the heart center. And one of the things that we know about the reptilian world is that this is the cold. People come out of the 44. Hot-blooded people come out of the 26. You know, this is the hot and cold of things. And it's something very important to understand is that without the heat of the 26, you can never create an immune system because basically what your immune system is that it is a burn system. That's why when you're sick, you get a fever. You know, you get a fever, you burn up, everything gets overheated, everything dies. You know, one of the most dangerous things for you is to get too cold. You know, you get pneumonia. You know, your temperature goes down too low. Everything about the immune system is about the regulation of heat and the relationship between the heat and the cold. The relationship between the hot-blooded power of the 26 and the cold-blooded power of the 44. When you're looking at the 44th gate, you're looking at the immune system itself. When you're looking at the 26th gate, you're looking at the thing that directs the immune system in its development, the thymus, and then provides the soldiers, the T cells, the hot warriors that are going to go in there and burn it up. For example, I'm a 26, I have no 44. So when I was a kid and I would get sick, boy, would I get hot. I mean, I would get so hot that my parents were certain that I was just going to evaporate. So there was all these cold things around me and stuff to try to bring my temperature down because I run hot. I mean, it's October now, and I still cannot sleep with any covers on my bed. I mean, I just run hot. Put the covers on, I start sweating right away. This is running hot. There are people who are cool, there are people who are hot, but the secret of this is understanding it is the immune system that gets built with this. Built with it. It's why you say you catch a cold. I mean, what does that mean? If you think about it. It doesn't mean anything. What do you mean you caught a cold? I mean, it is cold or not. But the reality is that any kind of infection is a byproduct of the way in which your temperature system is operating. People talk about getting a chill. So everything about this channel here is very important because this is the immune system. And the moment that you have the immune system, you have that wonderful, wonderful thing, fear. Don't we love it? And if you don't, you should. If you're not afraid, you're never going to be smart. Never. Never, 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 never. I mean, if you're not afraid that the next sound in the woods is going to eat you, you're never going to be able to deal with that situation. Never. You're going to get eaten. It's one of the things that human beings don't really get when it comes to the business of fear. Fear is there in order to bring about intelligence. I mean, that's it. As a matter of fact, the more frightened you are, the more intelligent you can be. And of course, if you don't take the fear personally, it's all okay. It really is. You see, most human beings deal with the problems of their lives, and these are their fears. It can be very mundane fears, and is the job going to work out? Is the relationship going to work out? Blah, 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 blah. Every single one of these fears, from the most mundane to the most exalted, all of these fears are there to move your intelligence. And at the very source of what we call intelligence is the splenic center, is our immune system. It is the intelligence for all the highest levels of life. It is the intelligence system for plants. It's the intelligence system for birds and reptiles and fish. It's the intelligence system for mammals. It's part of and the root of our intelligence. In other words, survival and intelligence, they go together. They go together. It's like here on the island with cats. There are cats that are semi-wild here. They're smart. And then there are cats that are brought from Pasha apartments somewhere in Europe and stuffed away here in some of these houses. And they're not so smart. They don't have to be smart. I mean, people feed them cow every day. Imagine what that's like. You're a little cat, and you get to eat cow. I mean, nature did not provide you with that opportunity. It didn't. So why work? They're bringing out the cow tonight. That semi-wild cat that's out there hunting mice and working, smart creature. And it is the nature of life. And it's one of the things for us to do is that if we do not embrace fear, we don't get to see our potential. We don't. We don't. We don't get to see the beauty of what we can be because we don't fulfill the potential of our intelligence. See, this knowledge, if you intelligently take in and apply this knowledge, you will be liberated from fear. There isn't any fear at a personal level that's there to touch you anymore. There's just what life is. We can see. You come into form and it's a fragile business. It just is. And staying alive is a real accomplishment. And staying alive is something that's possible if you're burning inside. I don't know who this guy was. I think it was Joseph Campbell, but I'm not sure. I don't remember. Some essay I read years ago that described all of life as nothing but fire. It's like us being oxygen breathers. I mean, we breathe in fire. I mean, we breathe. Have you ever seen what oxygen does to the side of your car? I mean, we call it rust. We breathe this stuff. You know, oxygen is incredible. It's an incredible corrosive. We live on it. Oh, good stuff. And it sets us on fire. Everything about these bodies is that these bodies are fire. They're burning. You know, we're warm. It's one of the things in the Maya I love more than anything else. I love to put my hand on a human being and feel their warmth. I love to put my hand on my dog and feel its warmth. Because the moment you feel that, you feel life. It's life. You can feel it. It's hot. You know, it burns. So this is the whole thing about the burning. You know, competition leading to fire, leading to fear. Why do you think our personalities have such a tough time? Think about this. Think about it. This is the meat we come into. Personality crystal is just software. It has no choice but to accept the environment it's dropped into. And this environment, as you can see, is prepared for what the world looked like 4 million years ago. This is 4 million year old stuff. These packages. We're way out here in the 21st century with our personality, consciousness, and our body is still trying to recover from only being a hunter-gatherer. I mean, you have to see that this package has a different role than the consciousness that experiences it. The package is only here to stay alive, and stay alive only until it dies. You know, there's a little thing inscribed on the machine when it goes out of the factory, this thing dies. You know, we all die. These are limited models. We rent them. It's like beer. You know, you never stay in the package very long. You know, out you go. Stage 7, 24 degrees of solar arc, and you can see that we now have a movement to the root. The root center is deeply underrated in human design analysis. It's enormously profound. Understand that the not-self strategy of the open root is to be in a hurry to die. It's to be in a hurry to get things finished so you can end the pressure. And the ultimate pressure is life itself. It tells you how powerful the root center is. It's always, always putting us under pressure. It's always, always putting us under pressure. And the pressure here, this is all about whether or not we have the competency to survive as a success. It always spooks people when I get to this place and the description of the mechanics that the vehicle has a kind of malfunction potential. And it does. See, look, that's the channel of struggle. And the channel of struggle is about the fulfillment of purpose. No gate in human design is more absorbed in purpose than the 28th gate. To not have purpose and carry the 28th gate in your design is to be somebody who is devastated by what life has offered. Because everything is about the struggle to find purpose. Everything. Everything. And you see, you cannot be competent unless you strive for purpose. Then please understand that. That's the pressure. That's why this exists. We are under pressure to be competent not as functioning human beings, but as the archetype of our genetic material. We're either going to be the best example of our model or not. No middle ground. You're the only example. So there's no middle ground. You're either going to be the best possible or not. And the whole thing is finding competency. If you're not competent, you cannot deal with the fear. If you cannot deal with the fear, you cannot be competitive. And if you cannot be competitive, you're not going to make it. You're not. You're not going to be able to stand on these funny two legs. You're not going to be able to make it. You'll be one of those many ones that their lives are either short or sad or both. And never forget that. We are deeply privileged. We are deeply privileged here. Most of the world suffers. 3 billion people live on around €1 a day. There's 1.5 billion people on this planet that don't have access to fresh water every day. There are 40,000 babies that die every hour because they don't have diarrhea pills. I mean, let's not forget what Earth looks like. What the not-self realm of pain and suffering and being in form costs us. And how much of life and incarnation is nothing but mindless turnaround. In and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. A breath of the earth, one human life, it doesn't care. The earth has lots of time to work out this experiment. Doesn't matter how many times you come roaring in and roaring out and roaring in and roaring out. There's nobody to care. So when you have the chance, you have to grab it. That's what this is about. You fulfill your purpose through being competent. And competency is directly related to your intelligence. It's directly related to your ability to be able to grasp the essence of what it is to be you. You. What I always return to and what always amazes me is how simple it is to be mythologically awake. I never forget that. Every class that I teach, every corner that I go into in this knowledge, all the potential of the mythology, all of the horror of what is frightening for the not-self, of being informed, all of the things that line up stage after stage after stage after stage that are saying to you, hey, you want to be responsible for this? Human beings, we have no idea how these machines work. If we had to be in charge of breathing, we'd all be dead. I was too tired to breathe. I was watching TV, I forgot. I had to do something else. I mean, think about what it would be like for human beings if we had to run our functions. I mean, we wouldn't have anything else to do. And we wouldn't be able to run the whole thing. Most of us would be bedridden. I mean, hard enough just to order the brain, let alone that you get limbs moving. And yet here we are thinking, all right, we're in control of this life. This is my life, and I've got a problem, and I'm going to fix it. Yeah, right, good. See, all of this is about choicelessness. We don't have any choice. We don't. You're not here because you made the right choice. You're just here. You flew in, literally. What to do, It's not about choice. And there is no choice whether being here means that it has any value to you at all. It doesn't. It doesn't. None of these things are choices. They're just geometries. And if you're riding on a nice geometry, well, what the hell? What does it matter where it goes, or what it becomes, or what it is, or what it isn't? It doesn't. You get to notice that. You get to notice that when you wake up in the morning, all you've managed to do is wake up in the morning. And there isn't anything else. There's just, you woke up in the morning. It's another morning. Life has its own agenda. I was planning a move with my family to North America, to Vancouver. And on the cross of upheaval, I call my lawyer in Canada. And he tells me it's not going to work. And immediately all kinds of plans dissolve on the cross of upheaval. And, I look at that and I think, yeah, well, what do you expect? You want upheaval, you got upheaval, here's upheaval. It's been delivered. It's just the way that it is. Lao Tzu was a bright guy. It just happens. It's true. It's true. It's all just happening. But you see, we're identified with this vehicle. We're identified with the pain of the vehicle, the problems of the vehicle, the survival of the vehicle, all of these things. It's like the person who is so concerned about crossing a busy street that by the time they're looking in one direction, they get hit by a car in the other. This is us. It's the way human beings are. We're so absorbed in our trip. I got people's trips up to here, right? Trip after trip after trip after trip. It's okay to play your movie. I love nothing better than an archetype as themselves. They're entitled to anything, after all. But the trips of the not-self, it's the same old movie over and over again, and it all goes back to all these very basic things. I can't compete. I'm not smart enough. I don't know where love is. And they start whining. And life, I never thought that I'd have to spend so much time in my life listening to whiners. I don't mind the odd glass, but the rest of it, this endless complaining about life, give me a break. Well, it's all okay, It's all okay. All right, let's move on. And we come to 8, and we come to my favorite channel. I love this channel. This channel holds so many mysteries in it. There's so many stories to tell. This is where you find God and spirituality. And it's where you find the killer, the butcher, that's us. It's where you find the possibility for what's new, truly new, because this is a channel that carries deep within it the potential for the transformation of humanity. There's nothing quite like it. It's deeply, deeply mystical. It's about as mystical as you can get in a body graph. And it's about as mundane as you can get. That 19th gate is about very basic things. I need. This is the pressure to need. To need. See, mammals don't have this. Nobody else has this. We have it. It's in our design. We're needy. We are. And there are certain things we need. We need food and we need sex. See, we're not fussy. It's not like it's a big list, eh? Short list. When you come to the 1949, that's the movie. Look, I want to eat and I want to make love. If I can eat and make love, everything's okay. And then the new ones will come and we feed them, okay, so that they can grow up and eat and make love. And if we all eat and make love together, then we can form a tribe. And if we all have the same rules for how we eat and make love, and then it goes on and on. But the first thing to understand about our basic needs is that our basic need is for food and sex. And when you go beyond food and sex, the next thing that you need is territory. Because you've got to have a place to eat and make love. You learn that when you're a teenager. Where do we go? Where can we go? Territory becomes everything. They figured out how birds sing. You know, some crazy whacker in England, because only the English have this obsession with bird songs. And he did this computer analysis over years of bird songs. And what he discovered is they basically have 4 components. And the first component, the very first component is, I've got a territory. I mean, hey, you know, if you want to offer somebody something, you know, if you want a partner, you know, you say, hey, look, I got a territory. Here's my territory. That's us. Food and sex depend on the territory. And the territory, guess what? Has to be protected. That brings us to power. The 49th gate, the gate of revolution, the gate of principles, the gate of rejection, the gate of marriage and divorce, the gate of the sacrificer and the sacrifice, the gate of Abraham putting his son on the stone. This is the real power. This is the power that says, no, you don't all get to eat. Only the good ones get to eat. Only the ones I like get to eat. Only the ones who did their job get to eat. And the 49th gate, as a butcher, is a killer. It's very good at killing animals to make sure that the resources are there for food. But there is an inherent problem in this channel. Is that the 19th gate calls for God. It calls for spiritual recognition. It is constantly looking for a greater force. And at some point or another, that greater force cannot be human. And this is where God comes in. God wears the robe of the 49th gate. You know, like Yahweh. I'm a heavy God. You fuck with me, I fuck with you for 100 generations, baby. I mean, your seed's going to rot forever. Heavy duty. Not only heavy duty, but you're not quite sure whether they're real or not. You know? I mean, you get a year of drought and everybody's going, God fucked us. You know? And of course, at some point, because we're designed for this, this becomes the authority that can mold us. And so at this very stage, the so-called development of the nervous system, and this is about resource capacity, and I could talk about this at many, many levels, but this is an overview. Resource capacity, that one of the fundamental resources that we need, remember these packages were designed to find others, to look for love, and to be able to compete against nature. You're more successful with others. And the more intelligent you are, the more capable you are of successfully fighting against others and protecting your environment, until finally this leads you into the tribe. And you go deep, deep into the tribe, and the tribe says, all right, we have our territory, we can protect it. We have our animals here, we've got our food here, we've got our warriors. You know, we're going to protect it. And what we need now is one thing. We need glue. Glue. And God is the glue. The big G. Tribes make love to each other and eat the same food. It is one of my things about diet that I try to stress, is that if you're eating tribal food, you're not going to advance in your consciousness. You're not. It's a deep limitation. You know what? One of the basic reasons we hate is because of smell. It's one of the basic reasons we hate. You know, the nose is the 44th gate. It's deeply connected. The sense of smell. Everything about the tribe is smell. The first pejorative was, they stink. You know, you got a tribe that's on the other side of the valley. And that tribe happens to have garlic growing there. So they become garlic eaters. And to the tribe on the other side of the valley, on the other valley where there's no garlic, they don't become garlic eaters. These people smell different. They smell different. You stink. And they do. Because their shit smells different. It does. You know that when a stranger comes into your house, everybody knows that. You walk into the bathroom and it's like, oh my God. And it's no worse in terms of value to your own. It's just, it's alien. It's alien. It stinks. It doesn't belong to your whatever. And it's the first thing to understand about the nature of diet. How do you think tribes were controlled? They were controlled through sex, food, and God. You all ate the same food. You all screwed in the same genetic circle. And you all believed in the same superior force. This is how you made a tribe viable. Well, that's good 10,000 years ago. It's all right, sort of, 5,000 years ago. It kind of begins to break down as you move along after that. Because you see, we're not, in the end, simply tribal. And the reality is that the tribe is deeply threatened by individuality in the collective because it has no God root. God is not its glue. It isn't. God's not my glue. I'm a pure freak. I don't know what they mean. I understand the forces. All I know is that gods are costumes. They're costumes on mechanical forces that are easily describable, which I've described many times when I've done rave cosmology. They're just forces. I don't need to anthropomorphize that into a hero. Nor do I need to have a force that's so superior and frightening that I've got to bow down and be a servant to it. I don't, but that's my nature. When you're dealing with the tribal nature, you're dealing with the most powerful forces for violence on the planet, and we all know it. And the closer you get to the tribe, the closer you get to religious fanaticism. And you get to those people that want to live in the 14th century, the 13th century, the 12th century. They want to go backwards. They want to go backwards to the old ways, to the old food, to the old this, to the old that, to the old fixed laws. All of that to go back to the fundamental principles of this channel. And yet to see that without it, we have no beginnings. We don't have the basis for community. We don't have the chance to be able to develop and survive as a species. Again, remember the great difficulty for us is that our consciousness is ready to be way beyond the limitation of our vehicle. I mean, Buddha hated it. You know, Buddha's trip was, let me out. And don't let me come back. And let me get the hell out of this thing. See, my philosophy of life is there's no better place to be. I'd rather have hardware. I'd rather have hardware. I mean, at least there's something going on. You know, there's a movie. You know, the movie is magnificent. It's beautiful. But you have to really see in the nature of how we develop that this is built into the vehicle. Where's my glue? You know, my kid's been raised with no religion. Nothing. They're interested in religion. Goddamn priests on my hands. You know, that's what happens. Where's the glue? You know, I got tribal kids. They're running around saying, where's the glue? Why don't we have this? Why don't we do that? Why? You know, where's the glue? Hey, I got no glue. I'm not like you. I don't need the glue. And it doesn't matter whether you explain it away or not. It's built into us. My machine needs glue. You know? Oh, it's really hard for human beings. You realize how many people have been killed in the name of God? I mean, can you possibly imagine? I mean, it's impossible to imagine how many people have been killed in the name of God. It is absolutely impossible to imagine how many people that is. It's extraordinary. I mean, my God's better than your God. I smell better than you. We get better sex over here. You know, oh, what to do? Being human. Now we come back to the
the 64th degree of arc, so we're 2 months into the process, stage 9, and we're looking at what's called the sex wave. And of course, what you're seeing here is you're seeing the firing up of the machine. There's no other way for me to describe that than it's like one of those old Model T Fords, these cars that you had to crank. This is the cranking line, and you zoom, and away you go, you got a life. Because this is setting in the most essential element of what it is to be a form. Make more. If you're going to be a bioform, your first imperative, once you figured out how to survive, is to make more. You got to make more. And we're under enormous pressure to make more. And again, it's in the machine. It's your mind saying, no, I don't really, oh boy. Because it's not up to your mind. Sexual organs talk all by themselves. They don't need a mind to direct them. They know immediately. They have their own, all right. We have this deep biological, genetic imperative to reproduce. And as those of you who have studied Penta with me know, that reproduction pressure doesn't let go until you have 3 children. And we're not very good at producing 3 children anymore, unless you're desperately poor and HIV positive. The reality is that most of the tribes of Europe are dying out. In Spain here, the reproduction rate is 1.2. That is not enough to replenish the tribe at all. That all of Europe, all the tribes of Western Europe, they're dying out. This is one of the basic imperatives. Make more. And if you don't make more, you're in trouble. Because this form is going to drive you crazy. See, look, I started off by saying to you that we're in a very special time. That we're in a time for the potential of inner truth. And if you look at that, and you look at the population explosion that has been taking effect since the advent of the nine-centered being at the end of the 18th century, what you'll see is this exponential growth in the potential of genetic mutation. We've never had so many possibilities for mutation ever in the history. There's more people alive on the planet today than have ever been alive on the planet. So we have this enormous potential for mutation now. And not the old way, tribal mutation. The last 200 years have opened up, and particularly in the last 30 years, an enormous number of children that are born across tribal lines. My children have a bloodline that you can't follow. There's so many zigzags in there. You're pulling from here and there and the other place. And this is the medium for transformation. It's like with diet. These crazy people who say, they've given up on urban life because it's so ugly. Oh, it's so ugly. And they're complaining. And they're going to go back to nature. And they're going to eat what they grow on the land. And they're going to be exactly like the people who first came there 300 years ago, with all their limitation and no potential for mutation. None. One of the most important things about the possibility of peace on earth is about food. We have that. I go into my local supermarket here and I have food from all over the world that's there. I get to eat a little bit of this tribe and a little bit of that tribe and a little bit of this valley and a little bit of that valley. I can have my sushi over here and my tacos over there, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. In other words, I have a global diet. So many of us in the West have a global diet. And that global diet is essential for our development. And it moves us away from hating the other. Not intellectually. They don't smell bad. Because we smell just as bad. Everybody's eating a burger. So everybody's got burger smell. Well, they can no longer be the distinctive enemy. They can't. At the deepest level. at the level in which the sensory system of fear operates. You know, it's why you feel safe in your tribe, where you eat the same food and you have the same this and you have the same God and you go through the same steps and you have the same principles that you follow, all very safe, but a dead-end street. It's a dead-end street. There really is no place to go. So when you come here to this stage, you come to just the basic thing about form. Form says, look, we have a responsibility. We're going to make more. We're going to make more forms because we know pretty much that the form that's making the form is useless and maybe the next one will be better. You know, it's the myth every parent has, that their child's going to be better than them. You know, this is the genetic myth. You know, it's the genes saying, hey, look, we don't know about you. Maybe the next one. You know, we don't know about this life. Maybe the next one. It's an ongoing process. So here in the sex wave, what you come to is something very essential. You know, what you get here is the solar plex motor being initiated by the sacral. Think about that. At this moment in the womb, this child, before this stage, is not exerting emotional pressure of any kind on its mother. The only thing that the mother that's carrying this child is aware of is that this is a demanding phase in the pregnancy. She may be more tired. She may discover that she has to eat more food. She feels more, you know, it's a period in which it feels like an enormous amount of energy is being taken from you, because this is the needy stage, the stage before this, the A stage. That's the needy stage, the 1949 stage. And there the fetus is going to display in that sense its neediness. But out of that emotional system is no wave. It's not like the child can depress the mother in the womb. Well, when you get to this stage, it can. Because this is the moment that the sacral center initiates the wave that lives in the sixth gate. It's the sixth gate that controls the three emotional waves that will operate through the three streams of the emotional system. So this turns on the emotional life. And actually, when you look at this channel, what you're really looking at is the preparation to be human. No other form has an emotional wave. Only humans have an emotional wave. This is a uniquely human process. And after all, this is going to be a uniquely humanoid awareness, in the sense that rave children, those that are going to be born with the mutation, that they're going to operate in a realm beyond the wave. In other words, their emotional systems will carry no wave because it will operate differently. You know, when you look at family analysis, we have the form that's known as the penta. And basically the way in which the penta operates is that it's a transpersonal form that operates from 3 to 5 beings. Yet human beings, that is within the context of us, our type of human being, we have no conscious awareness of penta. We can demonstrate it, we can show you how it works, and we can show you that the principles once applied are effective. So that when we're doing family analysis with penta, it can be of enormous value. Yet for the individual, it's not possible to intuit your involvement in the penta. When these children are born, they will consciously participate in the penta. And they will consciously participate through an emotional awareness that we have no access to. One of the great jobs of my life is to prepare the way for these children and to make sure that there's enough people aware on this planet of the coming of these children so that they can be recognized when they come, so that they're not shunted off into institutions, because within the normal configuration, their parents will assume that there is something wrong with them, autistic-like symptoms that in fact have nothing to do with autism. So one of the things to recognize about this stage and how important it is that this stage really creates life. It turns on the sacral center. It turns on the whole sexual reproductive system. This is the moment where you're going to have sex differentiation in terms of whether the fetus is going to come out as a male or a female. This is the moment that the emotional wave gets set. So this is a very, very important stage in the development, and it comes, as you can see, it comes 64 degrees in. So basically you're looking at about 64 to 65 days into the pregnancy, towards the end of after the second month of the first trimester. This brings us to the final stage, 88 degrees. And when you come to the final stage, you come to something very important. You come to the clock. And this is a very, very mystical phenomena. Has to do with the channel 15.5, and the channel 15.5 is universal in life. That is, every form of life has a relationship to this channel. It doesn't matter whether you're a plant or you're a fish or you're a mammal. This is a channel that is uniform in life. And of course, this channel is uniform because it brings the pattern of the flow of life itself. This is the design of a single cell, the 15, the 5, and the 60. That is a pattern with a rhythm that's open to mutation. This is what a cell basically is. So when you're looking here at the 15.5 emerging, you're going to get a number of things. The 15th gate is the gate of the aura. And one of the most important things to recognize is that the impact of the child on the mother is transformed at this stage. Because at this stage, people are saying to the mother, oh, I can feel it's a boy. Or, oh, I can feel it's a girl. And it's only at this stage that it begins to happen, because at this moment, the fetus has an aura. And it's the first moment that the fetus has that aura. But with that aura comes something else. There's a clock. You only get so much time in a vehicle. You only get so much time in a vehicle. All vehicles are designed to be terminal. They are. Now, I'm not talking about, and I will go through this on the third day when we talk about death and dying. I'm not talking about death in any sense of the word. In other words, I'm not talking about whether it's suicide or illness or somebody murders you or you die naturally in your bed. What I'm really talking about is the vehicle has a stamp on it that says this thing could function properly for X number of years, months, days, seconds, years. In other words, there's a finite. And if you're lucky enough to just die in your sleep, you will really know that you lived out the full value of your machine. Because that's what the stamp is. It tells you precisely this vehicle, that's what it has. Now, there's something very important to grasp about that. It's deeply related to serotonin count. And one of the things that is happening today is that there's a movement in the New Age, holistic health area where people are gobbling down serotonin, and it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. Serotonin is something that is not well understood, and it's very important to grasp that the way in which our timing mechanism is developed is that it's based on the amount of serotonin we can create in a lifetime according to that package. In other words, each individual package has a limited amount of serotonin it can produce. And that amount of serotonin literally acts as the clocking system for the amount of life that we all have. Not all vehicles are designed to live a full life. They're not. So you have a vehicle that's designed, to just, whatever, break down at some point. All vehicles are designed to break down at some point. And by the way, the vast majority of vehicles are good for about 90 years. The vast majority of them are good for about 90 years. And most of them have a capacity for 110 years. Most of them. It's not like you have a label that says you got 12 years. This is not, this is not what I'm talking about. In other words, this is a general capacity for the vehicle. And the important thing about this connection is that this is where the clock is set. The clock is set the moment you can impact others. It's interesting. From that point of view. Here's the aura of the fetus. It's suddenly there. There is its auric power. It suddenly has a presence, if you will, in the world. A presence that can be recognized by others that come in contact with the pregnant mother.
And in that moment, that's when the clock is set. So the clock is not set from conception. In other words, how long that vehicle is going to, it's set at this point, which means that the stages beforehand and the influence of the mother will have an effect. If you're going to be overwhelmed negatively with fear and so forth and so on, then, the way in which the vehicle is going to operate, by the time you get to this point and they're going to stamp how long it's going to last, it may be slightly less than somebody else's model. I mean, what to do? Okay, I just want to give you a short piece on trinary consciousness. Obviously, for, let's say, a normal pregnancy for 6 months, the mother is going to be living with what is essentially your design. Okay, so what you're looking at in this illustration is the vehicle of what will become this child. And of course, this vehicle's been calculated from the birth back, so we can just look at the design configuration. But basically what you're looking at here is, if you add this to the mother, in other words, if you take your design and you add it to your mother's design, you're going to be able to see right away what your mother had to deal with and how your mother changed you. We had a friend of ours here on the island. It's one of my favorite stories. She was, Ibiza has a lot of party people, and she was a great party person. She loved to dance, and she was one of these people that she wouldn't miss a party no matter what. And on this island, that means every day of your life, there's always something that's cooking somewhere. And suddenly she gets pregnant, and nobody sees her anymore. I mean, you just don't see this person anymore. Hidden away, nobody sees her. You should see the design of this kid. When you look at the kid's design, this was a kid that had the recluse, had retreat, had you name it. And there's the mother with, I can't party, And, of course, it's the influence of the child. So very important that you can see, and, of course, this works both ways, obviously. You can see the impact on this design from the mother's side so that you can recognize the kind of impact that the mother has. Moving on here. Here is a combination, this is just examples, and as I said, you'll all receive these illustrations so you can take a longer look at these things. This is just a combination of the mother with the child, and you can begin to see the influences that are there. But remember something, there's no personality. As long as there's no personality in the fetus, the psychological influence is from the child, the vehicle, to the mother. In other words, the vehicle is impacting deeply on the mother. It's a difficult part of the pregnancy. From the moment the aura is set until the personality comes, this is a difficult area in the pregnancy. And it's difficult because there is a lot of conditioning that the vehicle is having on the mother. So it can be very positive, by the way. I don't mean to put that all in a negative context. Difficulty for me is that I always assume people are not self. And given not self, it would be difficult. In other words, there really wouldn't be an understanding of how they're being impacted. It's also a great insight if you're working with pregnant women and you have data. You can really begin to help them understand their impact on the child and how all of this has operated. And then we have separation. This happened to be just a classic example of the mother and the child having the channel 53 and 42, which is the channel of maturation. It's the channel of coming into the world. It's the channel of going out of the world. This channel is all about beginnings and middles and ends. And one of the things to recognize that's clear within the context of design is that it is the personality, it is the child that demands that it leads. There's a lot of myths that have always existed about who does what. Is it the mother that pushes the child out? Or is it the child that forces the mother to push it out? In the mechanics, it's the child that forces the mother to push it out. So this is something that really is important, is to recognize that these vehicles, they get to a certain point. It's one of the things about induced births that I'm deeply opposed to them. Because it's not up to the mother. It is truly up to the fetus. The fetus has a mechanism, and that fetus's mechanism will guarantee its separation, whenever that separation is going to be. Basically, it tries to kill the mother. And it's one of the most interesting things. about the nature of birth. That the way in which that vehicle gets to leave the body is that, in a sense, it begins poisoning the mother, so the mother has to close it off, has to push it out, has to get rid of it. And as all mothers know who have gone through labor, you really suffer in that. That is an enormously painful ordeal to bring that creature into the world. And finally, in that sense, we have the birth, and that will lead us to the life itself. One of the most important things with the knowledge that we have is that all of you have to be deeply sensitive to birth time. And that particularly when you're dealing with people you know who suddenly discover they're pregnant, people who are pregnant and are going to have a child, for them to understand how important it is to have good timing. And for those of you that ultimately have an interest in prenatal design, because I've had many students over the years that I've worked with this knowledge in depth, and there is good course material available on all of this information, how important it is to be able to have people that have the timing, and if they have the timing, how much you can help them in their process. And that you can really help them understand the nature of what that whole incarnative process is and depersonalize it at a certain level. For them to see the karma of the fractal. It's not about what the child gets from the mother is bad. And the whole thing is that if you can work with the mother and the mother is healthy as herself, then you're going to have a good, healthy program that's going to work. But it's one of the things for the future of human design, as I introduce at this stage now, it's 17th year I'm teaching, as I introduce this stage of design knowledge, it's deeply dependent on excellent time. It's deeply dependent on accurate time. Particularly when we get into things like incarnation sequencing, when we get into base analysis. Everybody would like to know what their eternal perspective is. You have to have excellent birth time to get there. So, wherever you go and whatever contact you have with people that, are in that process, let them know how important it is. And it doesn't matter, I've often said that to people and they tell me they don't care. And I say, well, I don't care if you don't care, but you better start caring about your child now. Maybe your child will care. Maybe it will be very important to your child. And it's not about whether you believe in it or not, or this or that, or you hate birth data because you think it's all astrology and, on and on and on. The reality is that this is an essential tool. Now, I'm amazed today what I get. When people send me in data now, they send me in data of newborns with, down to the millisecond. They've got great data, and it really makes a difference. It's like twins. I can do the most startling analysis of twins if I have the data. But without the exact data, it's just not possible. They end up getting lumped together at the line level when, in fact, you can only see them through tone and color and base. So it's one of the things to carry through with all of this. None of that would have been possible without having the conception data to begin with.